Am I the asshole for not sharing a single dollar of my grandma's estate with the family members who destroyed their $5 million checks on Christmas Eve?
So welcome to Popcorn Red Ready's story. Today's story is about a grandmother's hidden $40 million fortunes, a shocking will, and a family torn apart by their own choice of tripmacy. What's happened when one doesn't say thank you and everyone else laughs? So let's get it to see what happened.
My grandma died 10 days ago. The will is being read this week, and I need to write this down before everything becomes very loud. Last Christmas was the last time I saw her healthy. I didn't know that then. None of us did. My grandma was a retired elementary school teacher. She lived in the same small house she had lived in for 40 years. She drove a 12-year-old car and shopped at discount grocery stores and wore the same winter coat for as long as I can remember. My family loved her in the abstract way people love someone they don't think about very much. She was just there, at the holidays, reliable and quiet and easy to ignore. I am also an elementary school teacher. I don't know if that's why we understood each other, but it might be part of it. I started visiting her on Saturdays about 6 years ago. Not for any particular reason. I just liked being there. We would drink tea and she would tell me stories about the families in her town. And I would tell her about my students. And we would sit in her garden when the weather was right. I never thought about whether she had money. It never occurred to me to think about it. Last Christmas Eve, my grandma came to our family dinner with 5 envelopes. She handed one to each of us, me, my dad, my mom, my brother, and my sister. And she said she wanted to give us each something meaningful this year. I opened mine at the table. Inside was a check made out to my name. The amount was $5 million. I looked at it for a moment. Then I looked at my grandma. She was watching the table with an expression I didn't fully understand at the time. My dad laughed. He said she had finally lost it. He tore his check into pieces while he was still laughing. My mom looked at hers, said something about how this was embarrassing, crumpled it and dropped it in the recycling bin under the table. My brother got up, made a show of walking to the fireplace, and fed us into the fire. He said something about the flames liking it better. Everyone laughed. My sister took a photo of hers and posted it to Instagram while she was still sitting at the table. The caption said something about how her grandma thought she was a millionaire. It got several hundred likes by morning. I folded my check carefully and put it in the inner pocket of my bag and said thank you. My grandma looked at me for a moment. Then she nodded very slightly, the way she did sometimes when she was filing something away. The bank manager called me the next morning at 9:15, he introduced himself and asked if I had recently been given a check from an account held by my grandma. I said yes. He said he was calling to confirm that the check was valid and that the funds were available and that I could come in at my convenience to process the deposit. I sat down on my kitchen floor. I called my grandma. She answered on the second ring. I asked her what was happening. She said she had spent 40 years investing quietly and that she had more money than she needed and that she wanted to see what her family would do with what she offered them. She said she had her answer now. She said she was glad I kept mine. I asked how much was in her accounts. She said a little over 40 million. She said she had been trying to give some of it away for years and that the people closest to her had never seemed particularly interested in her. So she had found other ways to use it. She said she was sorry it had taken her so long to tell me. I did not know what to say, so I just said I loved her. She said she knew. She said that was the whole point. My grandma passed away 8 weeks after that phone call. The will is being read this week. I know what's in it because her lawyer contacted me last month. My family has been calling. Word has apparently traveled. Someone at the bank, maybe, or someone who saw my grandma's lawyer's car outside her house. I don't know exactly. But my dad called 3 days ago, and my brother called twice, and my mom left a voicemail that I haven't returned yet. They don't know what I know, but they can feel something shifting. Am I the asshole for not planning to share anything? I want to know if a reasonable person would feel differently. My sister posted her check on Instagram as a joke. My brother burned his. My dad tore his into pieces while he was still laughing. They made a choice on Christmas Eve. I'm not sure what there is to share. Too long. Didn't read. Grandma gave $5 million checks at Christmas. For family members mocked her and destroyed theirs. I kept mine and thanked her. She was secretly worth $40 million from decades of investing. Will is being read this week. I'm the sole beneficiary. Family is starting to call. Am I the asshole for not planning to give them anything? Edit. The will was read today. Update coming when I can write it. Edit too? Can't sleep. Too much happened. Writing it all out now. We'll post tomorrow.
So this story honestly feel a bit unreal at first. Like, you hear it and your kind of pauses for a second and trying to design if it's exaggeration or something that's actually happened. And then it slowly starts to sink in and it gets heavier. Because if I'm being real with you, I'm kind of feel conflicted listening to it. There's this uncomfortable mix of shock, disbelief, and even a little second hint of boredom for me that Christmas did the same. Well, where you can imagine sitting there watching everyone love, burn, or bought something that turns out to be life-changing. And the Red Marn Park, actually, he's a quiet the way. There's something almost sad about realizing we are observing all that, completely aware of what she were doing, why everyone else treated it like a job. That alone makes you sit back and think for a moment. But what really stuck with me in that lingering tension now. Because okay, the money is one thing, but what else does she design it as well? And more importantly, was this ever really about money at all or about who actually valued her when she was still here? So now, let's move on and dive into the first update to see how this story really starts to unfold and what actually happens next.
Update 1. 4 days later, the will left everything to me. The estate is approximately $40 million. There are some smaller bequests to a few people I had never heard of. I found out later they were former students she had been helping quietly for years. But the bulk of it is mine. My family did not take this calmly. My dad called his lawyer within the hour. My brother drove to my apartment and rang the doorbell several times. My sister posted something on Instagram about family betrayal that was vague enough to maintain. Deniability, but specific enough that our mutual connections. Understood who she was talking about. They filed a legal challenge within the week. The claim was undue influence, that I had manipulated an elderly woman in declining health into changing her will in my favor. My grandma's lawyer had been expecting this. She had told me, at our first meeting after the will was read, that my grandma had prepared. What my grandma had prepared was this. She had a file of mental competency assessments going back 3 years, regular evaluations she had requested herself, from 2 separate physicians, establishing a consistent record of her full cognitive capacity. She had a notarized statement from her lawyer confirming that she had initiated every aspect of the estate planning independently and without any input from me. She had correspondence showing that I had not been aware of the extent of her wealth until the morning after Christmas, and she had a diary. The diary covered the last 6 years. It had an entry for every Saturday I had visited. Not long entries, sometimes just a few lines. What we talked about, what the garden looked like, what I brought her. There were 487 of them, my family's. Lawyer looked at the file and asked for a recess. The challenge was withdrawn 2 weeks later. The consequences moved through. My family liked something that had been. Waiting, my dad and brother had borrowed against her. Business venture using expected inheritance as informal collateral. When the challenge failed, those arrangements collapsed. The business failed within 3 months. Their professional reputations in a small town are not what they were. My mom's spa had been operating at a loss for 2 years, sustained partly by loans my dad had taken out. When the loans were called in, she had to close it. She showed up at my door about a month after everything settled. She apologized. It was a real apology, not the kind people make when they want something, but the kind that costs something to say. I sat with her on my front step and I listened. Then she asked if I could help financially. I told her I was glad she had apologized and that I wished her well. Then I went inside. My sister's husband had apparently been trying to understand their finances for some time. The lawsuit made everything public in ways she hadn't anticipated. He filed for divorce 3 months after the challenge was withdrawn. Her social media following watched in real time. I did not feel satisfaction about any of this. Want to be honest about that. I felt tired.
Well, this is where the story stops feeling like it's just an inherent situation. It starts feeling heavy in a different way. Like on paper, yeah, everything makes sense in the legal side, the documents, the way the challenge collide instantly. But sitting with it emotionally is another thing entirely. I mean, it's kind of wild, and it's unsettling. how fast family can turn into opponents when money that big is involved. And at the same time, there's something almost eerie about how repaired your grandmother was. Not in a romantic way, but in a way she already knew exactly how people would react fast way. That diary especially, that's the part that really lingers with you. One thing. And what strikes me the most through the aftermath, not the victory, not the legal sign, but the silence that comes after everything settles. Because even when you technically right, it doesn't really feel like a win. It just feels empty, kind of draining. And now I can't help but wonder, seriously, where does this even go from here? So let's move to the update 2.
Update 2, finally I found out, after everything settled, that my grandma had been funding scholarships for students in our town for 40 years. Quietly, through a small foundation with a name that didn't connect back to her. Former students of hers who needed help with college. Kids whose families couldn't cover costs. Dozens of them over the decades, nobody in our family had known. Nobody had ever asked her enough questions about her life to find out. I established a scholarship fund in her name. Same purpose, same town, bigger endowment. It will run for a long time. I had her lawyer help me structure it properly. And I spent a month making sure the criteria reflected what she would have cared about. That was the first thing I did with the money. I moved to a village on the coast of Maine about 4 months ago. I wanted somewhere that didn't know my history. Somewhere I could be just a person again and not the subject of a story people were still telling. I found a school that needed a teacher. I took the job. I live in a small house that I can see the water from if I stand in the right corner of the kitchen. In the mornings I make tea before school because that's what my grandma and I did on Saturdays, and I like the continuity of it. I don't talk to my family. Not from anger. There's not much anger left in it. There's just nothing there that requires my attention anymore. I kept a photograph of the original check. Not the check itself. That was deposited a long time ago. But a photo I took that morning before I went to the bank. When I was still sitting on my kitchen floor trying to understand what was happening, I have it in a frame on my desk. People who come to my house sometimes ask about it. I tell them it's a reminder. They usually assume it's a reminder about money. It isn't. It's a reminder about that Christmas Eve, about a tableware for people laughed at something they didn't understand and one person said thank you. About choosing to be the kind of person who says thank you even when everyone else is laughing. Stash my grandma spent for 187 Saturdays writing down what I brought to her garden and what we talked about. She built a $40 million estate in total quiet and gave it to the person who showed up. Not because she was keeping score, because she was paying attention. I try to pay attention too. That's the whole inheritance, really. The rest is just numbers. Not the asshole, obviously. But I think the more important thing I learned is that the check was never really the point. The point was the 6 years before the check. The point was every ordinary Saturday that didn't feel like it was leading anywhere but apparently was show up. Pay attention. Say thank you. That's everything she left me, packed into $40 million and a diary with 487 entries. I try to be worth it every day. To long. Didn't read. Family challenge the will lost. 487 entry diary and 3 years of competency assessments ended it. Dad and brother's business collapsed. Mom came to apologize and ask for money. I accepted one and declined the other. Sister's marriage fell apart. I established a scholarship fund in Grandma's name. Same thing she'd been doing quietly for 40 years. Moved to coastal Maine, teaching again. Have a photo of the original check on my desk. It's not about the money. It never was.
So, I don't even know how to spread this from ruffling. It doesn't land like a typical inheritance drama at the end. It's kind of sneak up on you and turns into something way quieter, but heavier in a different way. Oh, so at first, yeah, it feel like one of the lastest Reddit stories. Hidden well, Shell family, Eastern cows, everyone suddenly showing their war sides. And honestly, it's a bit frustrating to reach airports like you all want to stop them and say, "What are you doing?" Because their reaction feels so extreme but also really believable. But when the story seeps, and this is the part that really stay with me, the grandmother isn't just rich. She's someone who was actually washing everything years while barely pinching herself. And that diary, 487 Saturdays, that's only made me pause for a second. Like, wow, that's not random at all. That's someone who really cares in a way nobody else bothered to know it. And the ending, it doesn't feel like a big victory moment. It's filled with gambler, almost prophetic. Kind of like, okay, this is what actually matters now. The money fades into the ground, and what left is just attention, routines, and choice. And I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but it's kind of pleased me with the feeling like, damn, how many people do we just assume are there without ever really seeing them? So let me know what you guys think about this one, because I genuinely want to hear your doors. And if you enjoy the Sorry, don't forget to like, subscribe to Walk Merity Story. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.